Afternoon. Welcome to the Church360 Members Events and Attendance webinar. Today, I am your host, Jordan Bogart. I am a software support technician here at Concordia Technology Solutions. I have been here for a little over 5 years now, and if you want to reach me, you can do so at my email address right there, jordan.bogart@cph.org, or you can also give me a call. My desk phone is 314-268-1338. I do want to note that all phones and microphones have been muted for today's session, but if you do have any questions, you should see a questions window on your webinar toolbar there that you can ask questions on, and assisting me during today's webinar for questions is going to be my associate and my manager, Rod Kiles. And Rod's been here for over 20 years, I believe, coming up on 20 years, I believe, like Concordia Technology Solutions. Maybe have that wrong, but he's been here a long time. He's extremely knowledgeable. If you have any questions for Rod, you can contact him at his email at rod.kiles@cph.org, or you can give him a call at his desk phone, and there's his phone number right there. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to be covering here in today's webinar. So just kind of a brief overview, and we're going to get into some discussion. We're going to go ahead and take a brief intermission about halfway through, so we're going to be looking at maybe about 1:45 here local time. We are Central Time, so adjust accordingly with what you guys have there. And then we're going to jump back into our discussion, and we'll have some time for questions and answers at the end. But of course, if you have any questions throughout the course of the webinar, don't hold back, answer them. Go ahead and ask those questions as they come up, and Rod will go ahead and answer those, or I'll get to them as well. We get to them through the course of the webinar as well. And so, all right, what are we going to be talking about today? Oh, there's also going to be a quiz there. I don't know why that didn't fill in. That's my fault there for not including that. But there's going to be a brief quiz at the end of class. No worries, you're not being graded. We're just kind of going to reinforcing some of the points we talked about here during the class. So we talked about, so of course, we'll be looking at the login screen, how we get logged into the sites. We're talking about a few prerequisites for the attendance module in Church360 members. So we're talking about things like tags, Sunday school grades, smart groups. All those things can be really helpful for you guys when you're doing your attendance. Of course, calendars. Of course, we need to talk about those as well. And we'll need calendars and events. So there's a lot of different things that goes into doing your attendance before you actually get to recording your attendance. We're going to talk about all those here before we really dig into this and get started. Then we're actually going to talk about recording attendance itself. So kind of what goes into that, recording our attendance, putting in head counts, and we're also going to do some attendance reports here as well. So we're going to talk about things like attendance detail, the attendance detail report, and also doing some comparison using attendance trends. So there's a lot of different things we're going to be covering today. Hope we get everything covered for you guys that you are looking to learn about Church360 members as it pertains to attendance. So, oh yes, there's our quiz. I did mention that there. But I hope we can answer all those questions for you. With all that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up our window here. Now, I did say briefly we would touch on the logins. I'm also going to go ahead and turn up my webcam now, just so get that out of the way. The login here looks like, pretty simple. If you want to get to your Church360 members site, you simply go here to whatever your church's subdomain is. So in this case, our demo site is just learn.360members.com. And so you go to learn.360members.com or your subdomain.360members.com, press enter, and that's going to take you to the login screen here. And I use a special login tool here at Concordia, but you guys would just put in your username and password, click login, and then you'll be in. So we use this kind of a special one for the demo site here. Okay, so let's talk about let's go ahead and first let's talk about tags inside of Church360 members. So tags, really tags and smart groups are two things we need to talk about kind of in tandem because they serve similar purposes, but they really are not the same thing. And both can be extremely helpful to you. So you might see tags here right now. So like Dave Abbott here, for example, has a tag of teaching children, men's club, and church council. So tags, what they effectively are they are labels that you can apply to people to kind of group them together. And you really, tags kind of fall between two different ways. You can use tags in two different ways. You can say use them for participation in designations, and for the purposes of attendance, really that's kind of what we're going to be looking at them as. But you can also use them to designate activities they're a part of, like men's club and church council. But you might also say, for the purposes of attendance, you might designate people as visitors, so you can check out your visitors' attendance down the line when it comes to doing reports. So let's go ahead and let's apply some tags. So probably the easiest way we can go in and we can apply tags is just right here from the people screen. So if you want to add a tag to some people, let's go ahead and let's take this block of people right here. So I'm going to go ahead and check off a few people. And you might have noticed that when I started checking people off, this gray bar down here at the bottom appeared, and that gives me a few different options. One of them is add or remove tags. So if we want to add or remove tags, we go ahead and check everybody that we want to apply a certain tag to. Let's go ahead and do add or remove tags now. And let's just go ahead and add a tag. So we can add a tag of visitor. So they are a visitor here at our church. And you can see that was a tag we already had, so we can pull that up. Now the cool part about tags, now that we have that, is if we want to see just who our visitors are, we can come up here to this screen and we can type in visitor. And now that finds everybody in the system who has the tag of visitor. Now if I select everybody here, one more thing I want to show you guys is, okay, well, everybody in this group has the tag of visitor, but if I do go to add or remove tags, you might notice there's a few other tags in here, but they look faded out. Teaching children and church council. Visitor, though, is bright because everybody has the tag of visitor in that group, but these teaching children tags here, for example, and the church council, not everybody has that tag. So that's just letting you know that some people in the group have that, but not everybody does. So it's just kind of a visual cue for you to know, what's going on with that. All right, let's take us back from everyone. And let's go here. So if you ever want to remove a tag from somebody, just check the box next to their name, add or remove tags, and you can click the X here, and that takes that tag off. So kind of the organizational idea behind tags is this is a way you can go through and make a manual list of people that have something in common. So that's the idea behind tags. Now, where smart groups differ from that, let's talk about smart groups now. Where smart groups differ from that, if we go to smart groups, instead of us saying, okay, these are the people I want in the group, we're going to tell Church360 members what criteria we have, and we're going to find out find out from that criteria who's in that group. So maybe we want to know, let's say, we have this group here called recent visitors. I'm going to actually go ahead and I'm going to recreate that. So let's make a group here called recent visitors. Okay. So let's say recent visitors are people who are living, and that's by default. The system always assumes you're looking for living people, so that's why it puts that in as the first line. Let's add another trait to that. And let's say our recent visitors are people who have the tag. Now this is the cool part. You can actually use tags inside of a smart group. If I can find tags, there it is. Whose tags contain visitor. And I can add another trait, and I can say who attended. And let's say the worship events, worship calendar, which we'll get in the calendars here in just a moment. Who have attended worship within, let's say, in the last 90 days. Okay, so we're looking for anybody who has the tag of visitor who's attended our church worship services within the last 90 days. Now, if I had a group, unfortunately, we don't have any people in the system right now. We will come back around. We'll come back around to this actually a little bit later once we have recorded some attendance, and you're going to see how this changes. But the idea behind this is if we had anybody in the system right now who is tagged as a visitor, who's attended worship within the last 90 days, they would show up in this group. So you can see how tags and smart groups are pretty different. Tags is you going through and saying, okay, I know this person, this person, and this person are visitors, for example. But then if I want to know, okay, I know they're visitors, but when's the last time, have they came to our church within the last 90 days? That's where you'd want to use a smart group. So they're both organizational tools for you to group people together, but they serve similar but different purposes. Okay, so that's the idea behind tags and smart groups. Let's take a look at another classification we have on people, and that's on Sunday school grades. And so we can see whatever your Sunday school grade is here. If we go ahead and show that Sunday school grade field. I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of all the other fields here. So Sunday school grades, of course, are mostly used for children inside of Church360 members. Now, you might have adult Sunday school classes, and that's fine. But really, it mostly looks at children. So if I go to Sunday school grade here, you can see, hey, here's all the people who are in Sunday school, and here's the grade that they're in. Now, these grades are actually pulled from a list of grades. Now, if we want to look at our list of grades we have, we can click on the gear and then go to Sunday school grades. So Sunday school grades, what those show us is this shows us basically the progression of grades people go through inside of Church360 members. Now, we actually, the database we're using here, we actually imported from Shepherd staff. So this is actually using the grade conventions from Shepherd staff. The ones that come built into Church360 members are the preschool, so preschool, kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and then youth. But we imported our data from Shepherd staff, so that's why we have the Shepherd staff grading conventions. So the idea behind Sunday school grades is that, of course, this groups our students into those grade levels. But whenever you would advance the Sunday school grades, which we'll talk about that in just a moment, basically, let me sort this actually back into order. So those are out of order. You can actually change the order of these Sunday school grades here by just clicking and dragging here. The idea behind this is that whenever students advance by one grade level, they'll just go down the line. So for example, if somebody's in 6th grade and we get to the promotion date, it would bring them up to 7th grade. Now, let's talk about actually doing that promotion grade. So also, if you want to add a Sunday school grade, just come in here, type in the name of the grade, add grade, and then it adds it to the bottom of the list here. And then you can drag it to where you want in order. And if you want to get rid of a grade, just go to the minus sign here and then delete, and that gets rid of the grade. So the idea then of advancing Sunday school grades, you can actually set up Church360 members to advance your Sunday school grades on a specific date for you. So if I click on this gear here and I go to general settings, this brings us to our Sunday school. This brings us to our general settings menu, and there's a Sunday school section here. So what this says is we have the box checked here, and we said automatically promote Sunday school students on, and right now it's at August 16th. This means inside of this particular Church360 members site, on August 16th, every student, every person who's assigned a Sunday school grade will advance one Sunday school grade. So if I go back to the people screen here, that means Darren Belton on August 16th will go from SO1 first grade to SO2 second grade because the Sunday school grades advance from first grade to second grade. Now, once somebody hits 12th grade here, as 12th grade, what happens is when they advance, it will clear the Sunday school grade for them. It'll clear it out of that field. So that's where they might go into like adult Sunday school classes where it's not denoted by like their school grade. So this kind of works as a combination school grade, Sunday school grade together. Now, if you want to track that separately, you can do that through the use of custom fields. I'm not going to go ahead and go into we'll talk about more in depth on custom fields inside of our reports training. But the idea behind this then is that everything advances in order and using that Sunday school grade advancement. Okay, so that's the Sunday school grade. All right, moving on from the Sunday school grade, let's talk about, where'd it go for me? The calendars. All right, so calendars, what we're doing with calendars here, to explain calendars, this is a prerequisite for recording attendance. When we want to talk about attendance, we have to first talk about calendars because we need to have something we can put events on. Calendars are a way of grouping events together. Events are occurrences that happen at a specific time and place where people meet. And in order to group those together, we have calendars. So, talking about calendars, we have a few different calendars here, and I kind of want to show you kind of the way they work together, the way they work. So there's really two types of calendars we have on display here right now. We have what's called anniversary calendars, and we have just standard created calendar. Well, these are actually not created calendars; these are built into the system. But worship, fellowship, and education. So, and then pastoral visits is another category. So actually, there's technically three categories. So baptisms, birthdays, business plan is another created calendar. Confirmation anniversaries, deaths, and wedding anniversaries are considered anniversary calendars. What that means is they are actually not something that you can add events directly to in the system. They are calendars that are derived from the information in someone's person record. So what I mean by that is the baptism calendar creates events by looking at the date somebody was baptized. So if we look at Kelly Collins here, if we see her, she is baptized on November 3rd. So we can't add an event to the baptism calendar to say, oh, Kelly Collins was, we can't add an event directly through the events view, which we'll talk about next. We can't add something directly to the events view. It just comes over here and looks and says, oh, Kelly Collins was baptized November 3rd. There will be an event on November 3rd on the baptism calendar for memorial, kind of not memorializing that, but just showing that that happened on that date. Now, one thing we have to talk about in relation to anniversary calendars is back in our general settings here, and we have anniversary group. This is something we changed relatively recently. I think it was within this year. One of the things we encountered was the anniversary calendars would show events for absolutely everyone in the system. And that means people who had transferred away from the church, people who had passed away, people who were visitors. It would show all this information, and when we came over to the events view here, and it was just information overload. We saw birthdays for people who haven't been at the church for years, but you still have the data in the system. So how did we handle that? Well, we have what's called the anniversary group option now. So what you need to do now is you need to select a smart group, and their information will show up for all the anniversary calendars. So the smart group we're using here is just actually a built-in group called members. This is only looking at people who are currently members. If they've transferred away, if they passed away, if they're non-members, if they're visitors, they don't show up here for any of the anniversary calendars like birthdays or baptisms or confirmation anniversaries or wedding anniversaries. None of that shows up. So that's kind of the way we compared that down. So for the members, that works for the majority of these. For deaths, you might have to, if you're trying to see anniversaries of when people passed away, you may need to adjust that setting to a group that would show deceased people. But this is how we can filter. This is how we can filter our events view by using these anniversary groups. All right, let's go ahead and go back to the calendars here. So anniversary calendars, as I mentioned, are derived from people's information in their person record. We also have the pastoral visits calendar. That comes from the pastoral visits view over here. So whenever you schedule a pastoral visit or you've had a pastoral visit happen, When you add one in, that actually shows up on the pastoral visits calendar over here in the event view. So it's also unique in that it's not deriving it from people's records, but it is coming up from the pastoral visits view, and you're adding pastoral visits to that view. So that can be handy for your pastor if he wants to see, okay, what pastoral visits do I have, or whoever's doing pastoral visits, what events do I have coming, what pastoral visit events do I have coming up in the future? Okay. Then we have the built-in calendars like worship, fellowship, education. These are something that you can actually add events to. We're going to go over adding events here in just a few moments. And that also works very similar to the business planning here, which is actually a calendar that looks like we added in. Let's go ahead and add in one more calendar here. So when we add a calendar, I'm going to come up here, I'm going to type in VBS. Let's say we're going to have a VBS calendar for our kids. Now, that might fall under the category of education, but the cool part is with calendars, you can actually use multiple calendars when you're scheduling an event, and that can actually be advantageous when it comes to attendance reporting. So let's go ahead and add that attendance calendar. Now, one more thing I want to note here is you'll see these colored dots next to the attendance calendars. These colored dots actually will, they'll show up, they determine what color those events show up as on your events calendar. So some churches will actually use this as a sort of an impromptu grouping to kind of keep like types of calendars together. So for example, I mentioned that, okay, you might have VBS under education as well. So maybe I'm going to go ahead and keep that the VBS color here, that green color, to kind of indicate, okay, they're kind of used for similar purposes, but they're not exactly the same thing. So I'm going to press add, and that's going to add that to the list. I'm going to refresh my page, and when you do that, it puts it in alphabetical order. So this is always in alphabetical order for you. Now, if you ever want to see a list of all your calendars printed out, it's pretty simple to do. Just click print up here. And the nice part about this is this will actually show you as well how many events you have happening on that calendar this month. So that can be pretty handy as well. And you can print this out in a portrait orientation or a landscape orientation, either one that you guys need for what you're doing there. So you can go through and change the orientation fairly easily. Okay. Also, you can see the number of events you have coming up for the month on the screen here too, and you might notice that when I move my mouse over these, they actually turn blue. So if I click on the education calendar for this here, for example, this takes me to the events view. It takes me to the current month, and it also shows me only events that are on the education calendar. So you can see we have a pretty packed month here for the education calendar. There's quite a few events happening. You can see they're all in green because that's the color for the education calendar. Okay, so let's go ahead and also go back. Now you can also take that calendar view and you can export it out to a CSV or Excel file if you'd like, and you can see it over here. Let me bring up our calendar view to Excel. And this actually reveals something else for us as well. So if you have Church360 Unite, you can actually, calendars from Church360 Unite and calendars from Church360 members can actually be shared. So you can have calendars that you created in Church360 Unite appear inside of Church360 members and vice versa. So when you create a calendar inside of Church360 members, you also have the option of showing that in Church360 Unite. Now, we'll cover more of the Church360 Unite side of that in trainings when we do on Church360 Unite, which I believe are coming up next week. But you can see if these events, these calendars are required by members or required by Unite. What that means is if it's required by members, that means it's not a calendar that you can delete. It means it's in the system, you can't get rid of it. If it's required by Unite, that means it was created in Unite and it's something that's required that you can't delete, you can't get rid of. In this case, there's nothing here from Unite that can't be deleted and you can't get rid of. But you can see like this VBS calendar that we just created and business planning as well. Both those have false. And what that means is we created these calendars. They are not something that was required by the system at any point. So if you needed to, you could delete those. And if you want to delete a calendar, all you have to do is come over here, click on the little minus sign, and it says delete. Now, if we try to delete a calendar that, if we try to delete a calendar, let me see here. Let me check one thing. Did we actually record attendance for that? I don't think we have yet. Let me just go ahead and do something really quick, if you wouldn't mind. That was business planning, Board of Finance, this month on the 5th. Okay. I go in here, kind of getting a little bit of a sneak preview of recording attendance. Let's just go ahead and do that. Okay, so if you record attendance on an event, on a calendar here, and you were to go ahead and try to delete this calendar, well, actually, I think it'll let you. So it'll let you know the calendar has recorded events. Deleting the calendar will delete those events as well. Do you still want to delete business planning? So this actually does give you a little bit of a warning, letting you know, hey, if you're going to delete this, think about it first, because you are going to get rid of the events that you've recorded attendance on if you do that. So the system does give you kind of a chance to say, okay, maybe I don't want to do that. So just think about that before you do delete calendars, because deleting calendars does also delete the events that were on that calendar. So it's something you got to be careful about if you're going to go ahead and go forward with that. All right, let's go ahead and move on here now, and let's start taking a look at the events view. So this is the next and probably the biggest prerequisite to entering our attendance in Church360 members. So to get started with this, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come to the events view, and I want to just talk about the events view and what you can do with it. So first off, it does look like a calendar, and it's actually a collection of calendars that you've created here. You already kind of got a little bit of a sneak peek of what we had going on with this before, because we have different ways we can show the calendar, and we kind of were looking in here at that attendance event here for the business planning calendar. But when we look at this calendar here, you can see first up here on top, we have navigation to go back and forth between months. So if you want to go back a few months, you can click the back arrow and you can see, and you can go back as far as you want on that. And if you ever want to return to your current month, you can also go forward by using this right arrow. If you ever want to go back to your current month, just click on the circle in the middle, and that will always take you back to your current month. So it's a handy shortcut. If you get really far out there and you just need to come back to where you were, you can always click on that just to get to exactly where you need to go. Okay. So that's the navigation over here. Now, the calendar view also does have two different views. You can go in here and you can look at the monthly view, which shows you all the events for the month on the calendars you have selected. I'm gonna go ahead and select a few more calendars. Okay. You can also do a weekly option here. Now, the weekly option, what that actually shows you is just Sunday through Saturday, all the events that are happening this week, and it just gives you a brief little blurb here showing you, okay, what calendar is it on, what time is it at, where's it going to be. You can see all that information here on the weekly view. So this can be kind of handy to actually come in here and print out and put in your bulletin if you want to just give people an idea of what's coming up for the week, something you can print out and put in your bulletin. And then this can also be pretty useful here if you're wanting to print out more of a monthly calendar that you might put out in your church newsletter, for example. Now, the drawback to printing this out from here is that you don't get the different colors. So it's just simply the event names. So that's something to think about when it comes to recording to think about when it comes to printing out your attendance event calendars. You kind of do want to be descriptive with the names to let people know what things are all about. And again, you have the same sort of options. You can print this in portrait view. But with a calendar, actually, you're probably going to be better off in the landscape view, just to give yourself a little bit more horizontal space. Okay. You can also download this out to Microsoft Word, and that may be the best option, because then actually, when we take it out to Word, this does give us a little bit more of a view where it gives you a little bit more space, and you can actually edit the calendar here as well. Now, the more events you pack onto a certain date, is going to extend the size of each one of these cells. So that's another thing to think about. So you know, maybe you want to print out one calendar with just the birthdays on there. You do like a birthday calendar for the month. So if I download this, take it out to Word, that actually gives you a view where you're instead getting a calendar that's a little more compact. So you can see, yeah, okay, a little bit more compact. Whereas then maybe you want a separate calendar for just your education events. And then we print that out. And that one's not print out, sorry. We go take that out to Word. And that one's going to be a little more extended because we have, again, a lot of education events packed into Sunday. So you can see that's going to stretch things out just a little bit. So it's something to consider, something to think about when you're printing out your calendars. Okay. So you have that. Like I said, you can come over here and you can change which calendars you're looking at when you click on the calendars view. So any calendars you have, you can see all sorts of information on, valuable information on about those events coming up. Let's go ahead and take our worship calendar here. Okay, so let's talk about building. Let's go ahead and actually talk about adding events now. So adding events, first up, we're going to go ahead to add events. There's two different ways we can do this. Number one, we can press this new button here, and that's certainly one way we can do it. But I would say if you have the ability to do it, because some days are kind of packed already, so it's kind of hard to click into a day to, well, actually I'd say it's kind of hard and then I do it pretty easily. But you can, if you want to click onto a specific day to create an event, you can do that too, and that's going to be nice because it's going to have that day pre-selected when you go to create your event. So it is a little bit easier if you can just to click on the day you want to do that event on. So I added that VBS calendar, so let's go ahead. Well, let's not actually use that VBS calendar. I say that, but let's go ahead and not actually use that. Let's go ahead and use our worship calendar. And let's say we have a Wednesday night program at our church for our kids, and we want to go ahead and Wednesday night worship event. Maybe we're adding a Wednesday night worship event. So let's go ahead and start that as of September 4th, for example. So I'm going to click on the day. And let's just go ahead and say, we'll call it Wednesday night worship. Okay. And let's go ahead and put that on the worship calendar. Okay. And all right. And then we can go ahead and we'll say that's in the sanctuary. Okay. And then we can say that what time this event's going to happen. So let's say this is going to be on September 4th. We'll go ahead and say it starts at 7 at night and it goes till 8, so it's just an hour-long service. But you also have the option here of saying it's an all-day event. So if it's something that's all day that you have just the ability, it's something that doesn't really have to define start and end time. And you might use this for something like a church holiday if you're building like a calendar, like if there's like a certain church holiday you want to put on your calendar to show people about, tell people about, you can put that on there. You can use that all day designation, but in this case we're going to go ahead and have a time, and we're going to have this event repeat. So let's say we're going to have this event repeat. We're going to have it repeat every single week. And that's going to begin September 4th. And we can actually say this repeats indefinitely, which means it's just going to keep repeating, like I said, indefinitely. It's just going to go till the end of time. But you might have seasonal events that maybe happen just over a certain period of time. So let's say, well, this is going to end, and I'm going to have this go. Let's say through. Well, let's go ahead and go to the week before Thanksgiving, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Okay. So this goes from September 4th to November 20th. Now, right now we have this set to repeat every single week. So this is going to happen every single week. We'll stick with that for this particular event, but I'm going to show you a few other possibilities with our events as well. Now you can also add additional information, additional details people can see. You can write about that event if you want to add some notes to it. And then finally, here's a critical part for attendance. We actually need to say if we want to take attendance at an event here or not. So there's some events that you may not need to necessarily take attendance at, you just want it on your church calendar, so you might leave this unchecked. But if we want to take attendance at this event, we're going to go ahead and check the box here, say attendance taken. Then if your attendance is taken, you also have the option of telling the system that communion is going to be served at this event. So if you want to say communion is served, go ahead and check that box, and that will allow you to record a communion. Now, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and say no, that it's not served. Finally, the last option here is that offering is taken. Now, if offerings are taken, this is something optional you can do. You can associate offerings being taken with specific events. So if that's something you would like to do, you be able to associate offerings with this event, you can check this box here, and that's going to let you, when you record offering batches, say that this event, this is where you took that money. This is where you received that money at. It was this particular event. So if that's something you guys want to do, you can, and we'll cover that in a little bit more depth in our contribution training. So we click add, and now you can see we have a Wednesday night worship event every Wednesday at 7. Okay, so let's say we made this event, but then let's say, okay, well, we don't have for whatever reason, we'll say we get to November and oh no, well, here on the 13th we got snowed out, for example, early snow, we got snowed out. We don't want this on the calendar anymore. We can click on this event. This takes us into the edit view, and we can change anything about it from the edit view. So we can change the name, we can change the calendar, the location, the date, anything you need to change. Even deleting, if we delete this event, you can say, I want to delete only this event, or you can say delete all events within the schedule. So if I want to just delete this one instance of the event, I can click delete only this event, and that gets rid of it here. So yes, this repeats every week, but we got snowed out this week. So we'd have a gap this week, and then here's the next instance of that event. Simple as that. Okay, so I want to build that event, and let's go ahead here and let's add one more event here on Sunday. So let me go back to September. And you can add events starting to repeat in the past. You can see that I did that here. Let's go ahead and add one more event here, and let's start this. Let's start this in the first Sunday of the month, and we're going to go call this Sunday evening service. Okay, we're going to put this on the worship calendar as well. And actually, I want to double back here just for a moment. I'm going to go back to the calendars, and I'm going to add a communion calendar here. Now this can be handy when it comes to doing your reports. I'm going to go ahead and just make that red. Okay, communion. All right, so I'm going to make a communion calendar, and this can be, like I said, this can be come in handy when it comes time to do reporting. So I'm going to start this on the 1st, and we're going to call this Sunday evening service. And you can actually have events appear on more than one calendar. So I'm going to put this in for worship, and I'm also going to put this in for communion. Now we'll see the advantages of this here in just a little bit, but the basic idea is with having different calendars. And when we're doing our attendance reporting in Church360 members, having different the reporting in Church360 members is based upon calendars, not individual events. So if we want to report just on communion, it can be helpful to have both events on this calendar, because if we have worship, it's kind of hard to discern out, okay, what was our communion attendance? This is going to give us a little bit of a difference there. We're going to be able to say certain events are communion events. So I'm actually going to do one more thing here. Sunday evening service, and I'm going to say with communion. Okay. And we'll have that in the sanctuary. We'll say it's at 7 o'clock. I'm going to say this repeats, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this only happens, let's say this only happens on the 1st, 3rd, and 5th Sundays of the month. So I'm going to say here, this happens every single month on the 1st Sunday, the 3rd Sunday, and the 5th Sunday of the month. So what that means is when I do this repeating event, you're only going to see the Sunday evening service with communion on the first, third, and fifth Sundays. It's not going to create on the second Sunday. It's not going to create an event on the second Sunday and the fourth Sunday. Now, you might notice this month there's only 4 Sundays. Well, if I say only 4 Sundays, there's 5 Sundays. I apologize. There's 5 Sundays. But what happens on a month where there's only 4 Sundays? Well, that's no trouble. If there's only 4 Sundays in the month, it doesn't create an event for a Sunday that's not there. So it wouldn't create an event on a 5th Sunday that actually bleeds into the next month. It just wouldn't do that. So you don't have to worry about that. So it happens on the 1st, 3rd, and 5th Sunday of the month. We're going to go ahead and say attendance is taken, communion is served, and offering is taken. That creates the event, and now you can see that there. Which means we can also then create a Sunday evening service. I'm going to just do this really quick. And I'm not going to say it with communion, and I'm just going to add it to the worship calendar. And it'll be the sanctuary, same time, repeats on the 2nd Sunday and the 4th Sunday. And we'll have that just begin on that's going to begin on September 8th. Okay, and I'm going to change this to September 8th. There we go. And attendance taken, offering taken. And now we have that on alternating weeks. So this is a good way if your church doesn't do communion every week. That's how you can set this up. You can create 2 different series of events, one that has communion, one that doesn't. And my recommendation personally would be to make a communion calendar and include that communion event on both the worship event, on both the worship calendar and the communion calendar. So again, when it comes time to do your reporting, you can go in and you can discern which events are for communion, which are not. Okay, so that is creating our worship. That's creating our events. And with that, that's actually bringing us just about time to have our intermission here. It's about 45 minutes in here. So real quick, I'm going to pull up a timer here on the screen. And so we have 5 minutes. I'll go ahead and pull that up. Okay, we're going to take a brief 5-minute break. Of course, if you have any questions during the break, feel free to ask those questions, and I'll go ahead and get those answered for you. I'm going to start the timer now, and we'll see you in 5 minutes. All right, welcome back, everybody. Everyone had a good intermission there, just to kind of relax and recover here. So, all right. So we've created attendance events. So we're now at this point, we went through all the prerequisites and we are ready to start taking attendance. So let's move over to the attendance view. So if I go over now to attendance, this is our attendance view. Now, one thing you might notice about the attendance view is if I try to scroll up over here on the right, I can't go up any higher. I can only look at events that have already happened. So in this case here, I see an event from today, the 9th, September 9th, but I don't see any events in the future. The system does not let you record attendance for events that haven't happened yet. And if you think about it, that makes sense. We can't record attendance for an event that hasn't happened yet. We don't know who's going to show up. We don't know, what the circumstances are that they, would or would not show up. So this is kind of a safeguard we have in the system to help prevent you guys from accidentally getting ahead of yourselves and recording attendance for something that just hasn't happened yet. So up at the top left corner, you're going to see the event we currently have selected, which I have that Board of Finance meeting selected here. I just had that for just a quick event I need to add in. But let's go ahead and let's take some of those events we added here. Let's go ahead and start out with one of those Wednesday evening worship events here. So if I go through my listing here, I'm going to find Wednesday night worship here. All right, so Wednesday night worship. So we see it tells us here, here's the event, here's the day it happened, Wednesday, September 4th, 2019, 7 p.m. So it shows us the day and time. We have over here the ability to filter who we're looking at. So this is where the tags and smart groups come into play. We can go in here and we can take a particular smart group that we want to record attendance for. So maybe your church is really only interested in recording attendance for members. You can go in and filter just to your members. But we'll go ahead and leave it on as everybody right now, or everyone. So you can also search for particular people or family. So if you're trying to find maybe just Howard, I'm trying to find the Brown family. If I just type in Brown, it's going to pull up Howard Brown. Or if I just type in Howard, it finds Howard Brown. It also finds Thomas and Mary Howard. It finds Howard Montgomery. So you can search for either one there. So if we want to record attendance here, what we do is we have two different ways of doing that. Now, if an entire family or entire household shows up to an event, the quick way you can do this is just click the household name, and everybody in the household is marked as attending. You can see it shows 4 attended here, total of 4 people attending. But let's say just David and Shirley showed up to Wednesday night worship. I can just click on their names. It goes ahead and it marks just them as attending, but Jeffrey and Natalie here are not marked as attending. So you would just go through the list and you would just check off everybody who is attending that event. Now, as you go through and you mark off who's attending, what you can do is you can also put in an additional head count. So inevitably at a lot of church services, you're going to have people and you're going to have maybe visitors that you do get names for. And in that case, you want to add in your visitors as people into your system as visitors in the people screen first before you come over here to attendance. That way you can mark them specifically as attending. You might want to add that visitor tag to them as well. But then inevitably, you're probably going to have people that you see at the church service, they're visitors, but you have no idea who they are. You don't have their name, you don't have any sort of information, but you had some visitors. Your counters might have told you had visitors you don't have names for. That's okay if you don't have that. All you need to do is just put in here, let's say, okay, we had all these people attend plus 5 additional visitors. And that adds into our total over here. Now, what you might notice too is when we make any changes here, the saved icon shows up right away. This saves automatically as you go. You don't have to press a save button at any point. So this can save you. So again, it's not something you have to worry about. This saves automatically. Now, if your church doesn't record individual attendance, if you guys just go in and say, hey, we just get a number. You can say, I would like to enter just a count for this event, and down in the bottom right corner, you can just enter the number of people who were there. So you might not, your church may not record individual attendance for people, and that's okay. If you do that, you can put that in. Now that does limit some of the attendance reports you get. Obviously, you're not going to be able to tell when the last time somebody was at a church service if you don't record individual attendance. But this can kind of be the compromise you guys you might need in order to record attendance for your church if you just want to get the attendance figures in there. All right. Now, one thing you might have noticed in this here is this is an event without communion. Let's go back to that Sunday evening service with communion. And the first thing you're going to notice, the first thing difference you'll notice here is there's a little chalice icon next to each person. That indicates if they took communion or not. So, and you have that same chalice icon on a household as well. So if everybody attended the event and everybody took communion, we can click the chalice on the family name, and everybody will be attending, and you can see here's everybody who attended and everybody who communed. And then we can go through, we can do the same thing for the individuals. So David and Shirley, they attended and they communed. But maybe Jeffrey and Natalie attended, but maybe they didn't commune. Maybe they're not old enough to take communion yet. So we'll go ahead and mark them as attending. And I just clicked on their names. You notice their name, the box here turns orange, but the chalice doesn't light up. That means that they attended, but they did not take communion. And you can see here, there's a difference in the figures. But here's, you can see we have 8 people attending, but only 6 people taking communion. So you have that there where you can make the discernment of, hey, here's who's communing, here's who's attending. You can have that difference in the figures there. Okay, a few other things to note. If you want to go in here and let's say you started recording attendance and then you realize, wait a second, this was for the wrong event. If I click transfer down here, this lets you pick any other event that you might have recorded, that you can record attendance for, and you can click over here and that's going to transfer the attendance to that event. Now, what you do have to be careful of, I transferred an attendance event that didn't have communion, that did have communion to one that didn't have communion. That means the communion does go away on this event. But the nice part is if we transfer this back, the communion's still there. So it does still keep the data in the background in case you make a mistake with that transfer feature. But this is a way if you find yourself you made an accidental mistake here and you meant to start recording under one event, but you recorded under another, you can still transfer that information without losing any work. Now, the other option we have here is to clear. This just simply goes in and says, all right, I'm going to wipe out the attendance for this event. It's cleared. It's no longer recorded attendance for that event. Let me go back a little bit here. Do we have any recorded attendance? No, we don't. So sorry about that, but let me show. So one thing we can do here, when we download here, you can of course export this information out to Excel, for example, so you can open this up and you can see, all right, here's who all attended, and it'll tell you if they communed or not, which again, it'll say false on it for everybody on an event that there's no communion on, but it'll show you, hey, here's the date, here's the event, here's the people, and if they communed or not. But let's say another option we have here is the attendance sheet option. So this is something that does take a little bit of work to get started because you can't really do this with the first instance of an event if you haven't recorded attendance yet. But what this does is for repeating events, this creates a Microsoft Word document, and this actually lets you create sort of an attendance sheet for those people. So this can be really helpful for Sunday school classes because you can start recording attendance in these Sunday school classes, and anybody who's attended in the past will show up on this list and there'll be an X for each date they attended. So you can provide this to Sunday school teachers so they can actually go ahead and record attendance in their class, and they can go ahead and on each week they can write in new names if somebody is attending for the first time within that sheet. So they can include them, and then they can check these numbers off, and then they can provide those back to whoever is doing the recording the attendance in Church360 members, so that helps you record attendance for those events. So the attendance sheet can be really helpful for, especially like I said, for Sunday school classes especially. I feel like that's where you're going to get the most use out of those. Okay. So that is entering attendance. So I said we went over that, and you can say you can use the different smart groups. You can download this out to Excel. So that's how we record attendance. Let's go ahead. We still have a little bit of time before we need to do the quiz and everything like that. So let's actually talk about attendance reports now. So with attendance reports, we have a few different two different things I want to cover here today. Number one is the attendance detail report. And let's go ahead and go back here just a little bit. So the attendance detail report, what we have here is this is going to show us a sort of a pattern of when people have attended. So to start off with, first off, you can select your date range in two different ways. You can type in the specific date range you want to look at. So let's go ahead and look at a little bit into 2018, back in 2018. Let's look at the start of 2018, for example. So we'll go from January 1st, 2018 till the end of March in 2018. We'll get kind of a 3-month slice of time here. Okay, so all right, we have that. Now, the attendance detail report is going to show us for the smart group we have selected, right here. So whatever smart group we have selected, and for the calendars we have selected, who is attending the events. Now, right now we have all the different calendars on there. I'm going to go ahead and take off business planning, and let's go with education. Let's take that off, and we'll leave education on actually, and communion. Okay, so what is this actually showing? Actually, I'm going to take education off. I apologize about that. Okay, let's take education off. So what is this showing us? Well, first off, you're going to see the person's name, and we're going to see a graph of their attendance, which I'll get back to in just a moment. It's going to show us the last date they attended within the date range we're showing here, and you can show up to 1.5 years at a time. You can show you'd see the percentage of times they've attended, which that may look a little off considering, but we'll get back to that. And then we have the total number of times they attended events within that time period. Okay, so looking at the graph is probably the most confusing part, but I'm going to explain each one of these parts. So when we look at our attendance graph here, this is showing us 3 different things. If you see a blank cell here, this is saying on this day, there were no events on the calendars that we have selected. So there's no events happening there, so that doesn't count either way against them. This shows us that there was an event on that day, but the person didn't attend. You can see it's kind of got that gray shading on the box. And then finally, you have a spot here, a blue spot, which is saying there was an event on that day, and the person did attend that event. Now, the percentage may look a little bit strange because you can see there's plenty of events that Dave Abbott didn't attend, but it's showing that he has a 92.3% attendance rate. Well, what that means is this percentage attendance rate is actually talking about this is the number of weeks he attended, and the percentage of the number of weeks he attended those events. So you can see here, this is showing us, okay, well, yeah, if we look at a week, let's see, January 1st in 2018, what day of the week was that? Let's go ahead and just consult my calendar here really quick. If I consult my calendar, January 1st, 2018 was a Monday. So we can see, and this kind of goes back to one of our general settings features here. When we look at it, we say our church week starts on this Saturday. Now that may seem a little bit odd, but if your church runs Saturday services, typically that's kind of when your new church week starts. That's when the pastor starts preaching a new sermon. It's so that's when your church week might start. So we say our church week runs from Saturday, so it runs from Saturday to Friday. So that's when a new church week starts. So knowing that, going back to our attendance detail report, let me go ahead and set my dates again. All right, knowing that, if that was a Monday, okay, we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that's 1 week. So, well, Friday, and then Saturday is the start of a new week. Let me go ahead and take off education here. So Saturday is the start of a new week, and then Sunday he attended an event. So that counts towards his attendance for the week. So he's considered to have attended for the week. So that's how that gets filled in. So he's good for that week. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday is the start of a new week. He attended that week. You can see he has 92.3 because unfortunately the 31st of March lands on a Saturday. So if we extend that just one day, well, if we extend that just one day, Sunday, we see Dave Abbott actually has, according to this, 100% perfect attendance. Okay. Now with this too here, it's going to show us people who don't have a perfect attendance. You can see, all right, you can see they appear in red. So people who have especially high percentage of attendance appear in green. Those who have especially low appearance setting of attendance appear in red, and those who are somewhere in the middle are actually here in white. You can see kind of those different colors there. Now with this calendar, with this event, you have different columns you can show. So if you want to see other information on here, maybe you want to see, I don't know, let's say their current status. If they're a confirmed member or a baptized member, you might want to be able to see that on there. You can choose that. You can also print this report out. So you can print it out and take it out to a printout. Now that graph is sometimes a little bit it might not be as handy on a printout just because you really can't discern what that's telling you. So my recommendation is if you're going to print this report out, maybe you take that graph off. Okay. And then you could print that out and you'll see here, all right, here's what shows up on my report. And then you can see the last date they attended within the date range, percentage of attendance, all that information there. All right, so, and then of course you can also download this and take it out to Excel. And if you want to see that, go out to Excel here. So that can be actually pretty useful to take the graph out. Let me go ahead and put the graph back in for that one. Take the status out, put the graph in, take it out to Excel. And the neat part about this is you'll actually see each day and it will tell you, okay, on the graph, it's going to show you a column for each day. And it's going to tell you if there's no event, there'll be nothing in the column. But if there was an event, you'll see zeros for everybody who didn't attend and ones for everybody who did attend that event. So you can see that there. Pretty handy report for seeing trends in our attendance for individual people. Now, another thing we can do with this is we can go to reports here, and so that's the trend, that's the attendance of individual people, but maybe we want to see more broad information. Maybe we want to see trends in our attendance for our entire church. Well, we can do that. If we go to reports and we press new, we go to trends, we can set up what's called a trend report. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of what was there already because that was saved from the last time we used this. And let's go ahead and add a new trend. And let's go ahead and show attendance for worship. And you can select all the calendars if you want. You can select whatever calendars you want. And you can say, let's say for just our members. And if I press add here, this is actually going to show us our attendance for the time period that we selected. Well, for the current time period, for a time period here. So right now we're zoomed all the way in. This is showing us each week how many members we had attending worship services. And you can get that in a bar graph, or you can get that in a line graph. Now what we can also do is we can zoom out, and this is going to show us average attendance figures for the month. So you can see in October, here was our average, November, December. You can see our averages. Zoom out again, you can see more months. Zoom out even further, you can see an entire year's worth of attendance by month. Zoom out again, you can compare years, and this is on, again, average attendance for the year. And zoom out one more time, and you can compare even more years. So you can see different attendance trends working together. Okay, let's go ahead and zoom that out. So you can do that with attendance trends. Now, another cool thing you can do with this if I click compare here, you can actually compare 2 years side by side. So you can see here's how we were doing in 2018, and here's our comparison in 2017. So you can see we're doing a little bit better here in October of 2018 than we were in October of 2017. And you can actually compare up to 4 years at the same time. And you get the figures for that down, you can get the figures for those years down here. You can even compare the same week over that time period. Now you can also go ahead and you can compare different groups for attendance here too. So maybe we want to compare our attendance for members to our attendance for everyone, and you can do that. You can even compare different things together. So maybe we want to compare our offerings to our attendance, and that can show us, offerings compared to attendance, and you can see, okay, here's how we're coming along in comparison. So you can see actually it looks like our offerings trend pretty well with our attendance. You can see as our attendance goes up, our offerings go up, and as our attendance goes down, our offerings go down. So this is nice kind of statistical information for you to view to kind of see how your church is doing in sort of a big picture view with things like attendance and offerings. And you can do a lot with these trend views. All right, so that's the trend view. Oh, you can see you get a pretty big discrepancy there. Giving is way up compared to attendance. And now, of course, you can download this and take it out to Excel. If you take it out to Excel, this is really nice because what you get here is a view of your the view of what you exported out. You can see the numbers, so you can see the attendance and the offerings there together. Yeah, to answer your question, Elaine, yes, you can enter an attendance and also a head count. So the attendance itself actually generates a head count. So if you actually record attendance, it does actually create a head count of the number, telling you the number of people who attended. But if you have additional people, who attended that you don't know their names, let me go back here really quick to show you this. You can actually come here and put in an additional head count down here. And so you can say, all right, I marked these people as attending, and then there was additional 5 people I didn't know who attended. So I'm just going to record that down here. So you can do that for your additional head count. Good question, Elaine. All right. So that takes us to our, that's what I have here on attendance inside a Church360 member. So that's actually going to go ahead and take us to our quiz portion of the webinar today. All right, so let's go ahead, and so how this is going to work is I'm going to have a quiz window come up here for you. It's going to have the question for our quiz. You will be able to answer the question. And most of these are true or false. There is a multiple choice question as well, but just go ahead and answer whatever you think is correct for the answer. And remember, no pressure. You're not being graded. This is just to see if you guys, just kind of see how you guys took the information here that you received. So, all right, starting off here with our first question in our quiz. True or false? There are no major differences between tags and smart groups. True or false? No major differences between tags and smart groups. I'm gonna go ahead and launch the question here. Go ahead and answer true or false, whichever you guys think of the answer. True or false, no major differences between tags and smart groups. All right, give everybody some time to answer here. No major differences between tags and smart groups. Give everybody just a few more moments to answer. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now. All right, there are no major differences between tags and smart groups. And that is false. Tags are labels that you affix to person records, and smart groups are filters based on traits. So they're both important. They both serve similar purposes, but they are different because a tag group is a group that you pick directly. You're picking the people that are in that group, whereas a smart group, you're going in and you're telling Church360 member, this is the criteria, the people that I want to have in the group. And so, and then Church360 member is gonna find that for you. And one of the nice parts about smart groups is that they change as your data changes in the system. So one thing I did do, let me see if I actually marked, I can't remember if I actually marked somebody who was a visitor or not, but you might remember I made a smart group here earlier. And, okay, hold on just a second. Let me really quick find somebody who's a visitor. And I'll go ahead and demonstrate this. So Darren Belton is somebody who is marked as a visitor. So if I go to attendance and I find Darren Belton, and I mark him as attending, if I go and look back at my smart group now, he's going to show up as a recent visitor because he meets all the criteria for a recent visitor. He's living, his tags contain visitor, and he's attended worship within the last 90 days. He's a recent visitor. So that's one of the cool parts about smart groups. They update automatically. Tags don't update automatically. You have to manually go in and change those. It's not to say that tags aren't useful, but they just serve some different purposes. All right, let's go back to our questions now. All right, so next question up. An event is a planned social occasion and a calendar groups events together. True or false? Sorry about the question mark there. An event is a planned social occasion and a calendar groups events together. True or false? Go ahead and answer that question for me here. An event is a planned social occasion and a calendar groups events together. All right. Looks like we got some people answering here. Give everybody some more time to answer. An event is a planned social occasion and a calendar groups events together. Give everybody about 10 more seconds to answer here. Okay, yep, so that, we're gonna go ahead and close that poll out here. All right, and so an event is a planned social occasion and a calendar groups events together. We had a pretty strong majority on this one. And we said true. Let's see if that's correct. And that is true. Events represent social occasions. Example of events are things like worship services, council meetings, choir practices. I know we mostly during this training stuck to worship services, but you can also use events to build things that aren't attendance events too. Calendars give administrators the ability to group similar events together. So that's why we entered the calendar. That's why we entered that calendar event. So we have the different calendars, and that's why I kind of added that communion calendar separately. So you could actually, the idea behind that is actually after you record a few more events, you could show the worship and communion calendar together on the attendance detail report. But if you wanted to see people's trend of attendance just for communion, you could just show the communion event and you would just see that. So that's why we can create different calendars to group different events together. All right, moving along here. True or false? Once attendance is recorded, the attendance data cannot be changed. True or false? No, we didn't go over this one directly, but once attendance data is recorded, the data cannot be changed. True or false? Go ahead and answer that here. Once attendance data is recorded, the data cannot be changed. Once attendance is recorded. A lot of people voting here already. Give you guys some more time to answer here. Once attendance is recorded, the attendance data cannot be changed. Is that true or false? Give everyone about 10 more seconds to answer here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close the poll now. All right, so once attendance is recorded, the attendance data cannot be changed. The answer to that was unanimous from you guys. Everyone said false. Are we right? That's correct. It is false. Attendance can be changed at any time. To change attendance records, click attendance in the menu bar and select the desired event on the right-hand side. Then you can make any necessary changes to the data. So you can go in, take people off from attending. You can go in, you can change, you can change if somebody communed or not. Anything you need to change, you can always go back and change it. So it's one of those things you don't really have to worry. If you make a mistake, it's okay. It can definitely be fixed. All right. Moving on to our next question. If attendance is recorded on the wrong event, it is necessary to delete all the attendance data and start over. True or false? If attendance is recorded on the wrong event, it's necessary to delete all the attendance data and start over. And all right, true or false on that one there. So I'll give you guys some time to answer that one. Looks like we had people vote pretty quick on this one, so I'll not leave it open for too much longer here. If attendance is recorded on the wrong event, it is necessary to delete all the attendance data and start over. True or false? All right. Let me go ahead and close that poll here. All right, so if attendance data is recorded on the wrong event, it's necessary to delete all the attendance data and start over. And the answer to that, again, we are pretty strong majority on this one as well for false. Let's see if we were right. And false, good job, guys. If you accidentally record attendance on the wrong day, use the transfer button to transfer the attendance to the correct day. So I kind of showed that near the end of the attendance section. You just press the transfer button and you can transfer that event to any other event you want. The thing you do have to be careful about though, if you have a communion event and you're transferring it to a non-communion event, that communion data doesn't transfer over to that new event. But if you transfer it back to the communion event, the communion will still be there. So just know that if you transfer a communion event to a non-communion service, you will see that communion data that communion data won't show up on that non-communion service. All right, last question. Which attendance report would you use to show attendance patterns for a group of people in one ministry group? So we didn't really talk about ministry groups, but the idea was still kind of put out there during this training here. So which attendance report would you use to show the attendance patterns for a group of people in one ministry group? Go ahead and think that one over. Either A, B, or C, the attendance trends report, the attendance detail report, or the attendance summary report. Okay, got a little bit of varying information here. Attendance patterns for a group of people in one ministry group. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close this one out. Looks like we had most people answer. We had the majority of people say A, so we're gonna see, is that correct? And actually the answer to this is B. So the attendance detail report shows attendance patterns based on a calendar. In addition, the report allows users to filter the results by a smart group or tag. So with that, let me go ahead and go back over that because I think, yeah, there may have been a little bit of confusion about that. The trends report, that's to show overall entire church type of information. So that's showing, and maybe in my wording on that, I wasn't entirely clear because I guess the trends and the way that question was worded, I could see why you guys might have thought that. But when we're talking about attendance patterns specifically, the attendance patterns are you're always going to see that best in the attendance detail report. So let's go back again. What I mean by the attendance pattern for an individual person. That the key is there, show attendance patterns for a group of people. Here, we go from January to, let me go back here, sorry, my computer's running a little slow. So this is the pattern we're talking about here, is that you can see when people have attended or not attended over time, and that's for like a specific ministry group. You could go in here and say, for example, maybe I want to see how my voting members are doing. that's a group, and we could see, okay, here's how this person's doing within the group, and you can see that all through there. So that may have been slightly confusing wording in the question, so I do apologize about that. All right, so let's go ahead and get back to our PowerPoint here. And so that was the end of our quiz. Good job, guys. I do apologize for the wording on the last question. That may have been a little confusing. Do you guys have any questions? I know the questions have been open the entire time. If you have any questions along the way, but I want to just open the floor to questions here now. I'll give you guys some time to just ask any questions you may have here before the end of the training on attendance. So opening up the floor, go ahead and ask away. I'm going to just go ahead and proceed to the next slide here, but again, don't hesitate if you have any questions. So I want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. Again, I really hope you guys learned a lot during this session, and you maybe learned some things you didn't know about attendance, or you just kind of refreshed yourself on things you might already know. We hope you enjoyed today's session, but if you have any other questions, go ahead and give our support line a call. Our number is 1-800-346-6120. You can also email us at support@cts.cph.org. Like I said, I'll be on the phones there. Some of my fellow support technicians may be on the phones there, or you can also get an email from us as well. If you have any questions along the way, we are more than happy to help you guys out. So thank you everybody for attending. If you don't have any questions, feel free. This is the end of the webinar. Feel free to go ahead and head on out. Otherwise, if you do have questions, stay on the line. Go ahead and ask any questions you may have. Don't see anybody asking any questions, but I'll leave it open just a little bit longer. Okay. Well, I don't see any additional questions, so I am going to go ahead and close out the webinar. If you are still typing out questions, I do apologize about that. If you do have any questions after you think of any questions after I close up the webinar, just go ahead and send us an email at that support line or give us a call, and we'll be happy to help you guys out. All right, have a great day, everyone, and take care.